Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi. Candidate Hugh Hewitt on Monday, April 27th in the year of the plague, 2020 from inside the Beltway. Thanks for beginning your week with me, wherever you are on one of our 400 affiliates. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Instagram, my goodness, the numbers. There's always townhalltv.com. There's always hughhewitt.com. We're everywhere. Millions of you tuning in. Some of you listening by tape delay. You want to know the news. I'm here to tell you the news. I have a little sign now up on my call screener. I tweeted it out this morning. You can follow me on Twitter at Hugh Hewitt. It's the Chinese Communist Party stupid is the number one declaration, harkening back to James Carville's famed sign in the 1992 campaign that elected Bill Clinton in a three-way race with incumbent President George H.W. Bush and Ross Perot. They had a sign in their war room. It's the economy, stupid. Well, the sign in my broadcast studio is, it's the Chinese Communist Party, stupid. And you'd better remember that the CCP did this to the world, and it's bad. Got a little bit better over the weekend, but it's still bad. Number two, you have a choice every day, and especially in every election between now and especially in November, between free market capitalism and socialism. The Democrats are the latter, the Republicans are the former, and the latter will kill us. We are in the beginning of a V recovery. Got some good news on that side this morning. But if you pick socialism, we will be in misery for decades until a Thatcher arises. You can't pick the Democrats. And then finally, the choice before you is going to be the energy and team that Donald Trump brings. Donald Trump's energy and his team, or Joe Biden's cluelessness and his lethargy. I don't think it's a close choice. I know that the national news media hates Donald Trump, and every time you turn on anything that isn't Fox News Channel at night, they're banging away at the president. Don't believe him. Don't go for that nonsense. Trust Trump's energy and his team to get us out of this fix. That is, I remind you, the Chinese Communist Party's fault. Let me run through some headlines before I get you a little audio. First, stocks jump as some coronavirus lockdowns ease. That's the headline in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Global stocks rose Monday as investors anticipated new rounds of stimulus and more countries took steps to reopen their economies. European markets climbed in early trading as national governments, including Italy and Spain, signaled that they could loosen restrictions in the coming weeks. The pan-continental stocks Europe 600 climbed 1.8%. Japan's stock index ended the day up 2.7%. We are starting to see slightly constructive behaviors by investors on expectations that the stimulus is going to be enough to generate a recovery, said Dwight Evans, head of macro strategy for Asia Pacific at State Street Global Markets in Hong Kong. The thinking is that if the data is worse than expected, don't worry, because the central banks will come to support you. Meanwhile, also in the journal, U.S. debates how quickly it can reopen. Some U.S. states took steps towards reopening from lockdowns spurred by new coronavirus as officials debate how quickly to remove restrictions. Salons, retailers, other businesses in several states are set to reopen over the weekend. According to the World 2, officials have begun to remove restrictions in Italy and Spain. That's all very, very good news. The moves in the U.S. come as the rate of growth in infections in some parts of the country appeared to slow. Now, look, this is still very, very bad. In the United States, there are almost 1 million diagnosed cases. Who knows how many millions undiagnosed? We don't know the denominator yet. There have been 55,417 official deaths. Worldwide, there are 3 million official cases, but it's much higher because China lies. The Communist Chinese Party lies. And Iran lies, and other totalitarians lie. And 207,000 official deaths. But Dr. Birx, making the rounds yesterday, said social distancing is going to last for months. I agree. It's just not going to be imposed from the top. People are just going to keep their space. I went, by the way, on a meal run for friends in Virginia on Saturday. Drove past my favorite Italian restaurant, picked up 5 lasagna dinners, and went like Santa Claus with lasagna to friends and family in the region, dropping off lasagnas. And that's what people need to do. And they're ready to go. I mean, they're just so ready to go. They got their takeout ready to go. So many American restaurants have adapted. And pretty soon, when they reopen, they'll do every third booth or every third table. Great restaurant. Not going to tell you, don't want to ruin, wouldn't be prudent. Meanwhile, around the world, prisoners are being released by the hundreds of thousands. I think this is a good idea for nonviolent prisoners. I do not believe we ought to have, for example, a tax cheat in prison one more day. Not one more day. Why? Because they're at higher risk in prison. Put an ankle bracelet on them, send them home, tell them they're under house arrest. If they can go someplace safe. I don't think we ought to have any nonviolent offender in jail. Now, I defined a violent offender as a fentanyl drug dealer, by the way. I've always said that because they're dealing death. But if they're not a threat to the public, that's what they're doing around the world, because you shouldn't go to prison and get a death sentence. If COVID's in the prisons like the nursing homes are the real problem here. What I can't find about our 55,000 deaths is an age distribution and location. I think we're going to find that more than half of that is nursing home. That's not the fault of the nursing home. It's the fault of the frailty of the patients. It's the fault of the Chinese Communist Party. Let's be clear. And the most ominous story, I always give you the bad news as well as the good news, is that the Washington Post this weekend had a story, young and middle-aged people barely sick with COVID-19 are dying of strokes. All sorts of strokes in the young and middle-aged, not just at Mount Sinai Hospital, where the story began with an anecdote, but also many other hospitals and communities hit hard by the novel coronavirus are the latest twist in our evolving understanding of the disease as it causes. The numbers of those affected are small, but nonetheless remarkable because they challenge how doctors understand the virus. Even as it infected nearly 2.8 million people worldwide, this was a Saturday story, and killed about 195,000 as of Friday, its biological mechanisms continue to elude top scientific minds. Once thought to be a pathogen that primarily attacks the lungs, turns out to be a much more formidable foe, impacting nearly every major organ system in the body. Now, that doesn't mean attacking to the point of death, just means it's a tricky disease. It's going to require a breakthrough. Now, Dr. Birx was just so terrific on everywhere she went yesterday. Last week the vice president said this should be behind us on Memorial Day. And my buddy Chuck Todd asked her what that meant. This is what she said, cut number 6.
I think he means that in the models and in tracking our actual data, because previously we were using models based on data from around the world, and now we're very much tracking every single outbreak in the United States separately. And if you look at those outbreaks over time, and you look at places like Louisiana, if you look at Houston, if you look at Detroit, and you look at how they reach their peak and come down and what those cases look like as they come down, it gives us great hope when you project out Boston and Chicago and certainly the New York Metro, which we're all very still focused on. I mean, they still have 45% or so of the entire cases in the United States, and the majority, about 40 to 50% of the mortality. So we continue to watch this very closely, but that's where the projections take us, and it's very much based on Detroit, Louisiana, and other groups. And then looking at Seattle, that never really reached a peak and has never really had a large outbreak, and trying to understand what we can do as a people to ensure social distancing will be with us through the summer to really ensure that we protect one another as we.
And that's okay. I mean, people are going to be practicing social distancing for a long time, because why not mitigate? Why do you have a fence around a swimming pool? So that toddlers don't fall in. Why do you put a mask on so you don't infect someone else? Almost every day. I took the weekend off because of my relief factor had to kick in. I'll be going out right after the show today. I'm going to call the president today, I think, and see if he'll call me back. I want to know why he meets with Joe Biden's advance team every day. I really do. The White House press corps, I mean, there's some pros like Steve Holland, but mostly it's the Joe Biden advance team in the White House, and I would like to know why he meets with them, because I don't get it. But I'm going to call him today, see if he calls me back. Meanwhile, America, hang in there. He usually does call me back. Hang in there. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.